Just heading to live stream now, but we have about 25 seconds and we'll be live on the radio. So
Okay,
I
so
was just
have fun. Thanks for having me.
so glad you're here and hang on at the end as I close up everything and hit all the buttons. It takes just a moment to move everything at the end, but let's see. So we are about 5 seconds out. Welcome to Ability MKE Now. My name is Sue Roskoff. Here at Ability MKE Now, we are dedicated to inclusion, connection, community, bringing people together and being relevant to everybody. That is exactly what we do here, bringing people with disabilities and people that don't have a disability together, enjoying life here in the Milwaukee area. We all have our own experience with disability, whether it's our own, with people we know, or with people we encounter in our everyday lives. We all have different and unique abilities, and that is what we celebrate. Here at Ability MKE Now, we celebrate the ability in all of us. And usually joining me right now is my co-host, Michael Martin Hummel. He's a writer, speaker, and podcaster who is dedicated to bridging the gap between disabled and able-bodied communities. He is not able to join us today, but I want to give a big shout out to him and thanks to him for all that he does with the work here that we do with Ability MKE Now. And I'm sad that he's missing this because we have a most amazing guest joining us. And I am excited for the conversation that we get to have here tonight. Douglas Williamson has spent the last 20 years helping leaders and teams navigate the gaps between people who see the world differently. He's the founder of Bridge 6, which is a New York-based coaching practice, and lead faculty at the Collective Leadership Institute in Germany, co-author of a book on leading change together. He speaks 4 languages, has lived on 3 continents, and has worked with people from nearly every country in the world, which taught him early on that most misunderstandings between people have nothing to do with intelligence or good intentions, and everything to do with not recognizing a different way of doing things when you see one. Outside of coaching, he's an actor and director with a background in improvisational theater, which he says taught him more about real listening than any leadership course ever could. I am so excited to have you with us here today, Douglas. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Hi, Sue. I'm very well. Thanks for welcoming me to the show. I'm really happy to be here to be able to talk with you and have this conversation. I hope it's enlightening for all of our listeners out there.
And I am super curious. How did you get started in creating Bridge 6 and what you're all doing with communication the way you are? I love what your intro states with how you came to this point. I wonder if you want to elaborate a bit on that background and how you came to where you are now.
It's not a straight path by any means. I'm from New York City originally, and as a youngster, I was always really interested in looking outwards. I didn't quite feel that I fit in exactly with the culture in New York City. Not that I didn't fit in because it's everything here, but I was very curious, and I was very curious about talking with people and about learning languages. And so I think when I was 10 years old, I saw a publication in one of those little plastic, magazine dispensers on the street. And I grabbed it and I was looking through it. It was called the Learning Annex. And the Learning Annex had some kind of an open speaking engagement by a guy who said he could teach you or you could learn any language you wanted to. And I was really interested in that. And so as a 10-year-old, I showed up I showed up at this event to listen to this guy talk about language learning. And pretty much thereafter, I started learning languages. And I would say that I've mastered I've mastered 3 foreign languages that I can work in, that I really can work in, converse in, and have studied maybe another 7 or 8 more that I can get by in, or I can at least and I can say toast or cheers in about 30 languages. That's the one thing that I can really, and I can ask for a beer in many languages. But that really set me off on a path of wanting to be able to bridge differences and talk to people who were from a different background than me. And that really set me off on this path. I studied languages at college. After college, I moved to Argentina to get my Spanish in order. I had already learned French and I had studied in France during my college years. I moved to Argentina. I was a full-time actor in Argentina, and then I met somebody uh, in a romantic way from Germany. So I moved to Germany for 5 years and ended up learning German. And between Spanish and French and German, those are the three foreign languages that I still speak excellently and still work in. And I had a career first in entertainment, and then I realized that it was serving a part of me which was really just ego-based, and I wanted to go much more in a direction of serving people. And so I had a little bit of a crisis of conscience in my mid-20s. I was I had a ridiculous voiceover job, um, and I was voiceovering for McDonald's. And I don't really eat McDonald's, nor do I think McDonald's is particularly healthy or good. Nevertheless, I was shilling for McDonald's, and I felt I'm wasting my talent, and I need to change it up. And so I decided to go back to the States and go back to university, which I did when I was 30 years old. And I did a couple of master's degrees in international relations and natural resource management and sustainable development. And then had about a 20-year career, sort of working, living all over the world. I lived in Costa Rica on two different occasions. I lived in Germany on two more occasions. And my last stint in Germany, I was managing a consultancy which was working in developing countries, putting together very complicated projects, multi-stakeholder projects. And I was guiding and creating processes, coaching and mentoring leaders to put together these very complex, cross-sectoral, multi-stakeholder collaboration projects on all kinds of wacky topics. For instance, I was in Ukraine before the present conflict, but
Mhm.
after the sort of first one from 2014 or 2013 when then Russia took over Crimea, there was a period of time between the second sort of big war, which is the one that's still going on, and I got a job um, or a project working to put together a collaboration system with international actors, state actors, ministries from the national government, as well as local actors from different sectors of government, but also the private sector, and also nonprofit or non-governmental organizations to reintegrate the 2 million people who have been displaced back into the labor market, but in other parts of the country. So that, as you can tell, a very complex
Yeah.
collaboration project. And I did that job up until about 2 years ago, and I could sort of see the writing on the wall. And if you've been paying attention to international news and international politics, there's been a different focus, and it really became clear to me that the international development arena was really going to shrink, and possibilities would be much less. And so I was already in New York, and so I decided, let me start my own thing. Now's the right time. And so I started my own consultancy. It's m more directed now to the private sector. Being in New York City is very, very private sector heavy here.
Hmm.
And but I'm not exclusive. I will work with anybody anywhere if they need help. But definitely being in the New York City environment, there's a heavy private sector focus. But also it's just that this is where energy is right now in the country, much less in government. I think probably you also notice, Sue, that there may be less in academia. I don't know if you do notice that, something that I think is going on. In any case, I decided to switch it up, but all the skills and the approaches and methodology that I had been developing while working in these very complex, multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral environments, we really need to focus on how do I design a process and teach the skills to people so that they can bridge the differences and gaps in their understanding of whatever challenge they are trying to face together? How can they bridge those gaps to come up and co-create solutions? And that is what I do now, is now I help all kinds of people in different ways and different environments to really figure out how to gain the skills and sensitivities to overcome differences with whoever they're interacting with. Not only that they have an awareness themselves, but also to become leaders from wherever they may be sitting in a hierarchy. Anybody can lead with these kinds of skills to show by example or to guide people to navigating difference in collaboration in a better, more fruitful, and more productive way.
I love it. That what a fun journey to have had all these experiences living in different places. That I gotta say, the different languages kind of blows my socks off because I took a little bit of foreign language over time. But wow, to be able to be where you are and have those experiences, because there's cultural differences. So having that as part of this landscape that you've encountered throughout your journey, I love it because that idea of being able to communicate with whoever is in front of you and to be able to bridge whatever gaps might be there, that's a skill that everybody needs, no matter where they are, what their purpose is at the moment, whether it's your family relationships, your friends, your coworkers, wherever you are. So, with now the name of the company is Bridge Six. Where did the name come from? I can guess part of it, but I'm betting there's a story there.
There is. I don't know how deep I want to get into that particular story.
Okay.
Um, it, because that's also it's personal. Um, Six for me is a number which I think is a very powerful number. Um, so I'm also a believer that there are certain things that are quite universal, and six is for me a number which is very powerful in its universality, but also in its balance. If you think about a six-pointed star, a
Hmm.
six-pointed star, you could call it the Star of David. The Jewish star is two triangles. And there's an upwards triangle, which is also a symbol for masculinity. It's married to a downward triangle, which is a symbol for femininity. And so the six-pointed star is actually like a yin yang. It's about balance. So that for me is a very powerful number in that it also evokes that symbology or symbolism. On top of that, for the math nerds who are out there, six is a perfect number in mathematics. A perfect number is a number that whose divisors add up to the number. And there are perfect numbers and semi-perfect numbers, where some of the divisors add up to the number. So 18, which is three sixes, divided by 3, 9, and 6, also adds up to 18. But 1, 2, and 3, which are the divisors for 6, add up to 6. So it is also mathematically a number of perfect balance. I I think that what that speaks to is in my own methodology and way of thinking about things is whenever whenever we're interacting with people, we're interacting in a way in which we're constantly making certain moves. And any kind of time we make a move, there's a sacrifice of balance. Um, for those who are able to walk, uh, uh, and that maybe some people are unable to walk, but nevertheless, we understand that when you see somebody walking, a step that you take is a sacrifice, a deliberate sacrifice of balance in order to move somewhere. everything that we do, every time we make a move, it's a sacrifice of whatever equilibrium was held beforehand. So we are always in a dynamic equilibrium. Whatever we're doing, we sacrifice balance, we seek balance. We sacrifice balance, we seek balance in everything that we do. That is also when we put ourselves into situations where we are unaware of what is going to happen, we are also sacrificing our balance to a certain degree. And then we are seeking balance and seeking some kind of equilibrium or stable ground. So in that way, for me, the number six, it symbolizes what we seek, the balance, but we're never there. We're almost never there. Now, a bridge, it actually can be several things. A bridge is something that we can build. A bridge is something that we can cross. It connects two things. It brings us from one place to another place. I personally like a bridge that goes over water. That's my sort of, when I think of a bridge, you may think of another kind of bridge, and there are all kinds of bridges. I think of a bridge going over water. A bridge going over water. Water is an obstacle, and water is also there's an unknown that we must cross to go to another unknown. Anytime that we do something like that, we're sacrificing balance. Um, if you do go to my check me out later on, and you go to my website, which I'll say that later, you'll see that my logo is a hexagon, so it's six sides, and there's a bridge in it. And a bridge, a large bridge, and my bridge is based off of the George Washington Bridge in New York City. Most bridges have the big bridges, suspension bridges have sort of 6 points. You've got two verticals, and then you've got a horizontal. And so you've got 2 points at the ends, 2 points at the top, and 2 points at the bottom. Also, perfect number, six. So you can see that all of this, there's more than that that's in there, but I think that I will stop there. In any case, a bridge is something that has motion. I also like the fact that the word bridge has 6 letters, yet again, back to six. Um, but there's a lot of a lot of thinking that went into that number model, my logo, and it also it speaks to my leadership model, which also has 6 pillars, and those 6 pillars work at 3 levels. So it's also 6 times 3, which is 18. There's a lot of numerology in there, but that's where the name comes from.
I love that. I love that in so many ways. You're speaking to the science nerd in me a little bit with with all of this too. Now, okay, so you mentioned 6 pillars in what you do. Do you want to talk about those a little bit? Give us a little peek of, or even if you want to hit one of
Yeah,
them.
sure. I mean, I think, what I was thinking about and doing a little bit of research about your show and the community, which is not a community that I'm used to working with. The methodology that I use is a methodology to help anybody who's bridging any kind of a difference. And I imagine that this community, and this is pure speculation and assumptions on my part, which is probably not the greatest, but I assume that this community has a very specific way of seeing the world, a way that I don't see the world. And that perspective is something which is valuable. It's valuable because you can see things from a perspective that many other people can't see. I personally think that that level of diversity is a wonderful thing. It's a gift. It's something very special. It's something that we need more of. And to be able to honor difference and understand that something that is different is also valuable, is wonderful and important. And so, the work that I do with people is helping people to come to that realization. And you can't really tell people. You have to get people to practice.
Uh-huh.
And
I would agree
so,
with
you
that.
know, the training and the coaching and mentoring that I do with people, it's not a one-off doesn't work. It's about guidance. It's about holding people by the hand and about helping people to sort of walk into the fog on the bridge,
Hmm.
and to continue to take steps forward into an unknown and into an unknown which may be a little scary. Um, a lot of people, we all exist in our own bubbles where we can see what we can see, and we make assumptions that other people can see the same things. I think for the community who's listening today, I imagine that you are more aware than most people are about the differences that you can see that most people can't see because you have a special perspective. Um, I like to that sort of illuminate that fact with a story. Maybe I'll tell a little story
I love stories.
about about that. Actually, I'll start with a joke. I'll start with a joke. Maybe you've heard this joke before. I don't know. All right, here's the joke for everybody. There's a couple of young fish, and they're swimming by, and they swim by an older fish, and the older fish sees them swimming by and goes, "Hey guys, good morning. How's the water?" And the young fish kind of nod back and they keep swimming. And one of the young fish turns to the other young fish and goes, "What the heck is water?"
Oh, ooh, that's deep. I like that.
So to illustrate, when we're talking about the sort of default behaviors we have or our culture, we can't really see it when we're inside it. And exposing yourself to another culture helps you to see like what is going on. Why are people reacting in a different way? I think for people from the community of disabled people, and please forgive me if I'm not using the appropriate words or nomenclature, um, you see things in a very particular way, and I think that's very valuable. But probably it's annoying for you all the time because the world is not designed for you. People don't see things the same way that you see them, and that can be particularly annoying. And at the same time, that annoyance is really an opportunity. One of my coaching, mentoring slogans is comfort never sharpened anyone. And so being in places of discomfort can actually help you. Now, if you can help other people to be slightly uncomfortable as well, you can help them grow. That is where you can be a leader. Now, I can tell you that when I was younger, and one of my first one of my overseas stints, I moved to Central America for a job in a real organization like a company. And um, pretty early on, I gave some feedback to a colleague, and I gave feedback in a direct way. Maybe it was New York style. Um, and for me, at the moment when I did it, it seemed perfectly normal. I gave the feedback. I was slightly annoyed with some performance. It wasn't entirely this colleague's fault. It was maybe all of our fault. I was like, we can do better. We definitely can do better. But there was a tone, not a tone which is acceptable in Latin America. When I said that, it was out there, I moved on. My colleague, though, she really read it that I was taking some, that it was personal, that I was angry with her. She held on to that for weeks, assuming that I was upset with her. And when it came out that I wasn't angry at all, that I was just processing things the way I process things, it made me very, very aware that I was swimming in some water that, I didn't even perceive. Um, it taught me something that I still lean on a lot, and I think probably for everybody else, you could lean on it too, and also help other people to see that as well. You have to be patient with people. You can't take reactions personally because most of the time they have nothing to do with you. Um, you are probably running different operating systems or ways of perceiving the world. It's just the way it is. You can help other people to try and see the world the way you see it. Not the easiest, but we're all swimming in our own water. That's just that's just how it is. Um, I don't think it's kind though to let people not see what you see. And so helping people and being a leader in this way is something I really try to help people with. How can you actually say to people, listen, I want to help you see things in a different way. because there is a different perspective to this particular situation. Just the way that you spoke or something that you said, from my perspective, it rubs me the wrong way. And it will rub other people the wrong way too. And that can be damaging to relationships. It can be damaging to business. It can be damaging to collaboration, to getting things done, to co-creating, and just to having a joyous work or home or personal environment. So, like I said, comfort, it doesn't sharpen anyone, but clarity, if you can give it with respect, is actually a great form of care.
Oh, I so many gold nuggets in there. Oh my gosh. That I think that's a big stumbling block. People don't always recognize the impact they have on another. I think early on, I remember times I was overly sensitive all over, when I was younger. I'm still on the sensitive side, but words, that phrase of you don't always remember what somebody said to you, but you remember how they made you feel. That's big. And I've gotten more and more conscious of that as I age. It's come, there's experience plays a big role there, with how we perceive people and how we interact. And that's where with what you're doing and helping people to understand those differences and how to relate with others is so, so important. And I gotta ask that. I know we're running short here with our time, but what is it that you enjoy the most about what you do in this realm?
Um, there's a lot. There's a lot. I really, it really is gratifying for me when I can see that I've had an impact on somebody and made their life better. Whether it's their work life or their home life, and a lot of the essential practices at the core of the work that I do, um, they're universally applicable in any kind of an interaction, whether they be, with your spouse, partner, parents, child, your friend, any, I always say as well that every time you interact with another person, you have an opportunity. And you have an opportunity to make that person feel better, to make that person think something which will be helpful, to give somebody support, or to help somebody see a better path for themselves. Even if you don't say it explicitly, but to show them. Um, I feel like we all have that ability in us. And when I can help people do that, and I'm a service-oriented person, like I live to help people. So um, and I fail, all the time. There's no doubt about it. I fail with people, and this you can't get through to everybody. But if I feel like I've helped somebody, or somebody says to me, "Hey, that was really helpful, insightful, it helped in this particular situation or relationship," that's incredibly gratifying for me.
I love that. Well, and want to make sure to ask, what is your website? Hmm?
So if anybody would like to get in touch with me, I would say send me an email to Douglas, Douglas, at bridge6, BRIDGE, number 6.net. And my website is bridge6.net as well. The website's kind of it's under construction. It's there. There's stuff there, but it's not in a complete form. But feel free to get in touch with me. You could find me on LinkedIn too. It's probably a little bit more complete about me. Feel free to get in touch with me. I'm happy to have a conversation with people out there, and yeah, as I said, I live to serve and help people.
I absolutely love what you do. I love the difference you make with people. Oh, I wish everybody had that mindset of being able to bridge that gap with other and to understand and search for that understanding. This again is Douglas Williamson with Bridge 6, and my name again is Sue Roskoff with Ability MKE Now. As always, we thank you.
Thank you so much for hosting me. I really appreciate it. And to all the listeners out there, wherever you may be, have a good evening.